Do you want to know who really has the power in a ballet company? It's not actually who you think. I'm a former soloist with New York City Ballet, so I have seen how a company structure works. Let's start on the bottom rung of the ladder. These are the apprentices, the second company, or sometimes ballet companies will call them the trainees. Essentially, they are still working towards a full ballet company contract. Think of them as the bridge from ballet school into a full professional job. At least with New York City Ballet, the apprentices still are referred to as students of the school who perform with the company. These are the dancers who are considered good enough to get an eventual company contract. They're just not quite there yet. And essentially think of them having a year-long audition to see if they can get into that company. And it's a very frustrating place to be because oftentimes you are at the top of your class in ballet school. And then when you become a member of the second company or you become an apprentice, it's essentially like you are starting from scratch. Apprentices and second company learn repertoire, they perform with the company, they take company class, but most of the time you are in the back, you are understudying, you are doing only core parts, and essentially you might not get to perform everything you are learning. With New York City Ballet, if they do 9 ballets consecutively in a season, so not a year, a season, so like the winter season or the spring season, if you do 9 ballets or more, you automatically get a company contract. So if they're still unsure about you or if they're still kind of watching you, they're going to make sure that you might be learning everything, but they're not going to put you on for 9 different ballets within that time frame because it's an automatic guarantee of a company spot. So really it is a big audition for an entire year. Now, depending on the company, some apprentices are paid, some apprentices are not. At New York City Ballet, we absolutely were paid. I believe it's been a minute, but we were paid by rehearsals. So however many rehearsals you did, the hours you did, performances you did, it was all a big tally. In many other places, if it's a second company situation, you are paid a stipend or you're paid a very, very small weekly salary. Oftentimes it's maybe $300, $400, $500 a week. It's not a lot. So apprentices and second company members in many, many places barely make enough to survive. They have to have roommates. Some have to have second jobs. Fortunately for us at New York City Ballet, that was not the case. But that's the rarity. If you see the word trainee, they are not paid at all. Trainees do like Snow and Flowers and Nutcracker as a performance opportunity. They are not actually paid. The hardest part about being an apprentice or a trainee or in the second company is it's a whole year of uncertainty. You don't know if they're going to keep you. You don't know if they are going to eventually hire you or be like, sorry, we don't have a spot for you. You sometimes see other apprentices getting their contracts early, or you see other members of the second company doing more roles. So it's a whole year of this guessing game. So being an apprentice or being a second company is the hardest place to be in all of ballet. Once you make it past that level and into a ballet company, now you are the corps de ballet. This is literally the body of dancers. That's what corps means, the body of dancers in the ballet. So the swans in Swan Lake, the big group dances, Snow, Flowers, all of that. They are the heart and soul of ballet companies, and quite frankly, companies could not survive without them. What frustrates me is when people say, oh, she's only in the corps. Oh, I'm a corps dancer. If you're in the corps of a ballet company, you're phenomenal. Doesn't matter what company it is, doesn't matter where you are, because the competition is so fierce and there are so few spots and it's so limited that if you actually make it into a ballet company, you're like cream of the crop. So it gets really hard, especially for corps dancers, when you're doing all this big group things, when you feel like you're lost or you're swan number 17 on the left, that you tend to forget how phenomenal you really are. That's the biggest struggle with corps dancers, is they just feel like they get lost or they're never going to get seen. But even to make it that far, you're an absolute phenomenal talent. The corps dances more than anyone. They are in every single ballet, every single night. I danced more in the corps than I ever danced as a soloist. You think about a ballet like Swan Lake or a ballet like Serenade. They are on longer than the principals are. They do more dancing than the principals do. The corps often goes very much underappreciated because they're not doing a solo. You are dancing constantly, sometimes 6, 7, 8 shows a week. Sometimes you're learning 30, 40, 50 ballets a season. Your brain is going to explode. Your body is tired. They do more than anybody. In the corps, you do not get to choose your roles, request to learn something. You are told what to do, with whom, when, and how. And if you are spotted for a soloist or principal role, that is a very, very big deal. If you're doing a featured role while a member of the corps, they are testing you. It's an opportunity you have to grab a hold of to be seen. Essentially, as a member of the corps, you're part of the machine. It's a beautiful machine, but you are part of this structure. You almost feel like you can't mess up the structure. It's like you want to stand out, but not in a bad way. You want to be seen, but if you're too seen, that's not good because you maybe had a wrong arm or a wrong head, or you're doing too much. Your job as a member of the corps de ballet is to blend in with everybody else and create the structures. One of the common misconceptions about being in the corps is that it's not fun. Being in the corps of so many ballets is so much fun. There's such a camaraderie. There's such a we're doing this together, kind of like we talked about in the Swan Lake Stories video. You really feel like you are a family and you are all in it together and you're all gonna die together. It's one of those things that is such a bonding experience. And so many dancers love being in the corps. Some dancers actually prefer being in the corps and don't want to get promoted, don't want the pressure of a solo or the pressure of a principal role. And that brings me to the last point about the corps. Not everybody in the corps is going to get promoted. That's one of the harsh realities about ballet. Not everybody moves up the ladder, but everybody starts in the corps. One of the terms we use for dancers who've been in the corps a certain amount of time are senior corps. I believe that is 5 or more years in the corps. Depends on the company. But senior corps dancers are very, very revered. They are the workhorses. They are the reliable ones. They are the ones who have done more roles than anybody. So it really just depends on whether or not you stay in the corps, move up, how long you're in there, whether or not you're referred to as senior corps. Now, depending on the company, the normal next step is soloist. Some companies, if it's a 5 hierarchy system, you might have Demi soloists or first artists rather than artists. You hear the term artist, that also means member of the corps. So it just depends on the structure. A lot of European companies have the 5 levels. Some American companies do. But demi soloist, if you see that term, or first artist, is the bridge between corps de ballet and soloist. Demi soloists often do signets or a more featured corps member. You might get a solo like one of the fairies in Sleeping Beauty, things like that. That's demi soloist bridging the gap. Soloist is the normal next step. And being a soloist is actually one of the hardest places to be because you are not in the corps, so you're not doing all your corps roles that you used to do. So you're maybe not dancing as much, but you're not a principal. And so the principals take priorities in principal casting and in soloist casting. Depending on the ballet company, you'll either still do featured corps roles as soloists, as we talked about in that Swan Lake video. Many companies use soloists for things like signets, or as in the case of New York City Ballet, you no longer do any corps spots and you do featured roles here and there. You might do demi parts, you might do anything that has a variation, but it's not the lead. For example, the fairies, Bluebird, things like that. Many of us at New York City Ballet, because the rep was so big, you do principal roles as a soloist. However, the key with those is you're probably never going to be first cast. The principals always have to get on first. So let's take Nutcracker, for example. Principals are always cast first as Sugar Plum, and then Dewdrop. Soloists are next. So the principals will get the better performances like Saturday evenings, and then the soloists will get in once the principals all have their spots. So you're kind of in this weird position, especially if it's a company without the demi soloist category. You are this gap between the two. And I remember there was one season I was a soloist, I danced maybe 4 shows in 6 weeks. And then there was another season where I did every single performance that season. It just depends on what the repertoire is. Some of them are ready for principal. There are just no principal contracts. You have to remember this is also a business. There are not unlimited principal spots. There are not unlimited soloist spots. So sometimes within these categories, you're stuck in that rung for a while simply because there is no spot. So every soloist is different. Soloists don't really get to ask for roles either. To be honest, there's not a lot of power in any of the ranks as a dancer. You're just sort of in this weird in-between place, hoping you get promoted, hoping that you get to do something, hoping there's a spot opens up or a choreographer comes in and sees you to cast you in a principal role, and then the ballet staff sees you because you did a good job, and then they'll put soloist is one of the most frustrating places to be. Now we get to the principals. And again, some companies have an in-between spot, often known as first soloist. So if you see soloist, first soloist, principal, the first soloist is the bridge. Some companies do away with it and you're either a soloist or a principal. So the principals are obviously the top tier of a ballet company. They do only principal roles. They only do featured roles, Aurora, Juliet, Giselle, Sugar Plum, but Dewdrop is in there as well. Dewdrop is one of those roles, is like, is it a soloist role or is it a principal role? Depends. City Ballet, it's a principal role. That really is just the matter of opinion in a ballet company, what role is what. But a principal will always be featured. Think of them as the brand ambassadors of a company. The company puts a lot of stake in you when you're a principal. You are paid more than anyone. You are a hot commodity for the company and they have invested in you. So while it's wonderful to be a principal and you get these featured parts, there's a lot at stake. If you're a baby principal, a newer principal, you still don't have a lot of power. The more senior principals do. I do know of principal dancers going in and asking for roles or saying they are graduating out of a role. A lot of the principals, once they are older, don't want to do something like Aurora anymore, or I've graduated out of Swan Lake, just because it's a lot. It's hard. So they do have more say in their casting. In some ballet companies, principals can negotiate their contracts. So they can go in there and say, I want to be paid this, and here's the track record I have. But that's not very common. They really don't have as much power as you think they do. You still don't choose your schedule. You still don't choose really who you're dancing with. You still don't choose the performances you want to do. The only time you get to dictate what's on the program is if it's your retirement show. And only principals get retirement performances where they bring out the flowers and everybody bows and this and that. If you are a soloist retiring or if you're a core member retiring, you're pretty much not going to get that big acknowledgement. You still as a principal have to answer to the artistic director and answer to the board. There's so much pressure on your shoulders. An entire evening might depend on you. So while it does seem very glamorous, it's a lot to handle, which again, going back to when we were talking about the core, why a lot of dancers don't want to be principals. Because yes, it's beautiful and wonderful and you're featured, but there's a lot riding on you. So up until this point, we've only talked about dancers. If you're really looking at a hierarchy, they don't have a lot of power. So let's talk about who does. First, we have the artistic staff, ballet masters and repetitors. Some people wear both hats, but I want to tell you the difference. Ballet masters are the ones who rehearse the ballets. We talked about this in the Nutcracker Stories video. Nutcracker comes back every year, so they just reset it. When a choreographer comes in, a ballet master is assigned to that choreographer. The choreographer comes in, creates the ballet, and leaves. Once the choreographer is gone, the ballet master then takes ownership of it and rehearses it. Now, a repetitor is a person who sets a ballet. For example, Balanchine ballets have Balanchine repetitors. They are the only ones that are allowed to set those pieces of choreography. If you are not in New York City Ballet and you are going to do a Balanchine piece, a Balanchine repetitor will come in, set serenade, and leave. And that repetitor will be assigned a ballet master who then rehearses it when they leave. New York City Ballet is the anomaly because all the ballet masters are also repetitors, because most things are in-house. So all the Balanchine ballets are set in-house. All the Robbins ballets are set in-house. So they wear both hats. But in other ballet companies, you must bring in a repetitor to set anybody's work. Christopher Wheeldon has repetitors. Justin Peck has repetitors. Robbins has repetitors. Ballets that don't need a repetitor to come in are public domain or are owned by that company. So for example, Sleeping Beauty and Swan Lake are public domain. They are by Petipaw. The copyright laws or the copyright time has passed. I believe it's 100 years after the choreographer's death. Someone correct me on that. Sleeping Beauty is a classic. Swan Lake is a classic. Giselle is a classic. Any ballet company at any point can do those pieces and have ballet masters set them, and you're good. But the Balanchine ballets are still copyrighted. So that's why you must have someone come in and set them, and the ballet company employs its own ballet masters to rehearse it. Now, while these people are not the artistic director themselves, they have a lot of influence. If they like a certain dancer, if they are seeing a certain dancer improve, they have the ear of the director. The artistic director will probably have a staff meeting once a week with all the ballet masters to ask who's doing well, who's not doing well, who's delivering, who's not delivering. So while the ballet masters don't have full power, they have more than you think they do. Many times, they will be able to influence casting if they can convince the director. Oh, I really like so-and-so in the back of Spanish rehearsal. I would really like them to have a chance. Okay, great, and they get cast. Repetitors coming in have a lot of say. If the balancing repetitor coming in for Serenade doesn't like you, they're not going to let a company cast you. Or vice versa. If they really like, well, I like the understudy who is in the back, the artistic director is going to listen. Ballet masters and repetitors have a lot more power than people realize. Finally, we do have the artistic director. Artistic directors obviously make all the artistic decisions. They have final say on casting. They have final say on the programming. They are the head honcho. And it's very, very obvious as a dancer that everything is about the artistic director's opinion. Everything is about what that one person wants. The reason they are called the artistic director is they are in charge of the artistic direction of the company. So they really have the most influence on what you're seeing on stage, who's doing what you're seeing on stage, things like that. Now, is it fair to have one person's opinion be the sum total of an entire ballet company? No, but that's the reality. It's that person's opinion that drives the whole thing, which is why becoming an artistic director is even harder than being a dancer, because it's one person per ballet company, not 100. While artistic directors do get a lot of flack, there is more on their shoulders than on anybody else. It is a very lonely position. It is a position where you cannot make everybody happy. You know you're going to ruin some dreams. It's a lot to be an artistic director, and there are so few spots for that, which is why I think now it's so important that we hire the right people to fill those spots. But it's a big job. So you might think that we're done, but there is one group of people and one person in particular that have even more power than the artistic director does. And that is the board of directors, the executive director. Most ballet companies, I'd actually say all ballet companies, are nonprofits. So they must have a board of directors. And the board is in charge of hiring and firing the artistic director. If they don't like the artistic director's vision, if they don't like what that person is doing, if there is some scandal somewhere, the board can vote them out. And that actually, even though they're kind of in the shadows, those are the people with the most power. They are also some of the biggest donors. The donors can influence the programming as well. Well, I'll give you $5 million, but we'd like to see more balancing on the program. So then the artistic director is kind of like, well, they gave us $5 million, so let's work on that. Some dancers make friends with the donors, and that inspires the donor to give more money because they like a certain dancer. Some donors actually, in many companies, sponsor a dancer. If you see in the program under a dancer's bio, sponsored by so-and-so, that usually means that a donor is supplying their salary and helping the company out. The executive director handles all the financials. And the executive director typically has some sort of business degree, financial degree. That's a person that really has spent time getting educated to be able to financially run a company. The artistic director might be like, well, I want to redo Nutcracker and I want to do all new sets and costumes, or I want to bring in so-and-so to choreograph. And the executive director might look at the budget and be like, nope, can't do that. So ultimately, ballet companies are still businesses. There is still a bottom line. There is still a budget. There is still money in, money out. And so no matter how wonderful the vision of the artistic director might be, if the funds aren't there, they're not going to be allowed to do that. The other hidden power player in all of this, of course, is the audience. The audience can dictate what a company does and doesn't, because the executive director will look at what program sold the most tickets. The numbers don't lie. So if the audience really buys tickets for Swan Lake and it really does financially well, that shows the powers that be that this works. If an audience doesn't buy tickets to a new world premiere, or if it doesn't sell that well, they might not do that again. Ballet companies are businesses at the end of the day. And while it allows so many of us to live our dreams, being on stage, dancing, doing these incredible pieces, ultimately what dictates success and survival is the bottom line and the budget. And for a little piece of advice, you guys, go to the donor functions, see them, talk to them, get to know them. Don't be so in your own little world that you don't even realize who is paying your salary. Make friends with the executive director. Just be kind and realize this whole system of a ballet company is functioning with certain limitations in place. So go meet and talk to the people who really do have the influence. The ballet world is more complex than people realize. It is human. Remember, these are human beings with opinions, but it's also a beautiful place. It's a beautiful art form. Just know that yes, these dynamics are in place, but you can navigate them with personal power. You can navigate them day to day and be just fine. We've all had to navigate them. These rules have not changed for decades, and we all still had careers. So if you want to do this, don't let this scare you. Just use this knowledge as information, but make sure you are dancing for you. If you are dancing for you, if you are putting your heart and soul into something you love, you're going to do well. So don't get so fixated on, well, in Kathryn Morgan's video, she said it's all about the artistic director and I have to please them. In an essence, you do, but you are going to please them the most when you are dancing for you, when you love what you're doing, when you feel confident in yourself. So that is where to start. That is how to deal with this crazy hierarchy. Put it in the back of your head, dance for you, and you're going to do well no matter what. If you have any more questions about ballet company life or you want me to expand on any of this, let me know in the comments. If you missed my Nutcracker Stories video, it's right there. You can click it to watch. Love you guys, and I will see you next time.